The stairs descended into something Bruce couldn't refuse. Each wooden step groaned beneath his weight. Cold air rose from below, carrying sandalwood incense mixed with mildew and decades of cigarette smoke. The tea house above bustled with evening chatter, but down here silence swallowed sound. At the bottom, stone walls pressed inward. A single naked bulb swayed overhead, casting shadows that moved like living things. 12 elderly men sat in a perfect semicircle. Their faces were carved by time and discipline. Hands rested on knees, eyes tracked Bruce's every breath. No one smiled, no one spoke. The weight of their judgment pressed against his chest. In the center of the concrete floor stood a man who seemed carved from darker wood. Master Zhang Wei, 60 years old, spine straight as iron. His arms hung loose at his sides, but Bruce's gaze fixed on the hands, blackened, calloused. Knuckles like stone that had forgotten softness. Those hands had broken something more than boards. Zhang Wei's eyes locked onto Bruce. The air thickened between them. Somewhere in the basement, water dripped against rock. One of the elders shifted his weight, and the creak of his chair sounded like a bone snapping. Bruce stepped forward, and that's when Elder Fong rose to speak. Elder Fong's voice sliced through the basement like a blade. "You claim old methods don't work." The Cantonese words carried weight Bruce hadn't expected. Sharp, accusing, each syllable landed with the precision of a thrown knife. Bruce's jaw tightened. He hadn't said that, not exactly, but words twisted in transit, rumors sharpened into insults, and now here he stood, labeled as the young fool who disrespected centuries. "Master Zhang will show you why tradition survives." The 12 elders shifted forward in unison. The movement reminded Bruce of predators catching scent. Zhang Wei stepped into the space between them. His hands rose slowly, palms facing outward. The calloused skin looked like cracked leather, yellowed and hardened by decades of iron palm training. Bruce had seen conditioning before, but this was different. These weren't hands. They were weapons forged through pain. The air grew dense, heavy. Bruce felt the pressure settle across his shoulders like an invisible yoke. This wasn't a debate. This was judgment delivered through flesh and bone. Zhang Wei's fingers flexed once. A subtle movement, but Bruce's instincts screamed. The demonstration was about to begin. Zhang Wei moved to the center of the room. 2 concrete blocks waited there, dust thick on their surfaces. The old master bent, lifted 3 oak boards, each an inch thick, aged dark, and positioned them across the gap. The wood settled with a hollow sound that carried weight. He straightened, rolled his shoulders once. His breathing changed, deepened, became something deliberate. Each inhale filled his chest cavity completely. Each exhale compressed his core. Bruce recognized the pattern: qi cultivation, not mysticism, biomechanics married to breath control, oxygenating muscle fibers before explosive output. Zhang's hands hung at his sides. The skin was dark, not dirt. Calcification, decades of striking iron sand, then gravel, then stone had transformed the tissue into something else entirely. Scar tissue layered over scar tissue until nerve endings died and bone density doubled. The room held its breath. Zhang's right hand rose, paused at shoulder height, dropped. The crack was immediate, violent. All 3 boards exploded into splinters that scattered across concrete, the sharp scent of raw oak filling the stale air. The sound echoed off stone walls, reverberating in Bruce's chest. Zhang's hand didn't bleed, didn't even redden. 40 years of conditioning stood before him, and Bruce had nothing close to match it. Zhang Wei lowered his blackened hands, letting splinters fall from calloused palms. His voice cut through the basement's stale air, steady as temple bells. "Your speed is impressive, but useless against iron body conditioning. 40 years to build this." He tapped his abdomen twice, the sound dull and solid. "No strike can penetrate." Bruce remained still, watching. Few in that room could recognize what he saw, not arrogance, but the quiet certainty of 10,000 hours transforming flesh into armor. "Then let me try," Bruce said. The elders stirred. Incense smoke twisted between them like silent witnesses. Zhang moved to the center, boots scraping concrete. He dropped into Ma Bu, horse stance, feet rooted shoulder-width apart. His knees bent at perfect right angles. Breath descended deep into his lower dantian. Abdominal muscles contracted in waves, layer upon layer, each band of tissue compressing until his torso resembled carved ironwood. "Strike my stomach," Zhang commanded. Full power, the challenge hung between them. Bruce stepped forward, his right hand rolled into a fist, knuckles aligning. Zhang's core tightened further, veins surfacing along his neck. The basement held its breath. Bruce's arm coiled back and drove forward. The impact came clean and sharp, knuckles meeting flesh that felt like striking a sandbag wrapped in leather. Zhang Wei's torso absorbed the blow completely. No flinch, no backward shift of weight. His abdominal wall held like riveted steel plate, 40 years of conditioning transforming tissue into something no longer entirely human. Zhang's lips curved upward. "See. Your modern methods are weak." Behind him, the 12 masters exhaled in unison, a collective sound like wind through bamboo. Elder Fong's weathered face settled into satisfaction. Vindication hung thick in the incense smoke. Bruce stepped back, shoulders loose. His eyes tracked across Zhang's stance, measuring angles and structure the way a craftsman reads wood grain. 3 seconds of silence. 4, "You're right," Bruce said, voice carrying no defeat, only observation. "Direct power alone won't work." The admission landed heavier than any strike. Few warriors possess the courage to speak truth when pride demanded bluster. Imagine standing before legend and acknowledging limitation, not surrender, but the beginning of adaptation. Zhang's smile widened, certainty radiating from every inch of his iron-forged frame. But what Bruce saw in that moment, the subtle pattern hidden beneath muscle and bone, would turn absolute victory into something far more dangerous. Nobody spoke. The basement held its breath. Incense smoke coiled through stale air, casting gray shadows across stone walls slick with moisture. Elder Fong's weathered fingers rested motionless on his knee. Bruce stepped back, hands open at his sides. "Master Zhang, may I try a different target?" The words hung between them, stripped of challenge, pure request. Zhang Wei's blackened palms flexed once. Confidence radiated from his stance. 40 years of iron palm conditioning, 40 years undefeated. What could this young teacher possibly know that decades of tradition had not already proven? "Strike anywhere you wish." Zhang's voice carried no mockery, only certainty forged in 10,000 repetitions against hanging bags and wooden posts. Bruce bowed, slow and deliberate. Zhang returned it. The 12 masters leaned forward. Silk robes whispered against wooden chairs. No one coughed. No one shifted weight. Few could understand the gravity pressing down on that concrete floor, the collision of lineages suspended in a single indrawn breath. Zhang resumed his horse stance. Bruce's eyes tracked the rise and fall of the older man's ribs. 1 heartbeat, 2. Bruce's hand began to move. Bruce's right hand snapped upward. Zhang's blackened palms rose instantly, guarding his face. 40 years of reflex. His core remained tensed, abdomen like forged steel, ready for the second power strike that never came. Bruce's left palm shot low instead, and found the gap, the floating ribs, unprotected cartilage beneath the ribcage where muscle conditioning meant nothing. Bruce's fingertips pressed into the intercostal space with surgical precision, compressing the nerve bundle that ran between the 10th and 11th ribs. Not hard, accurate. Zhang's breath caught, a sharp, involuntary hiss that cut through the basement's stale air. His eyes widened. The sensation wasn't pain from impact. It was something his body had never learned to resist. A signal his nervous system couldn't ignore, no matter how many decades he'd spent hardening flesh and bone. His horse stance wavered. The left knee buckled first, then the right followed. Zhang Wei, undefeated iron palm master, dropped to one knee on the cold concrete, one hand braced against the floor to stop his full collapse. The 12 elders sat frozen, mouths open. Bruce stepped back, palm lowered, expression calm. But Zhang's face, something was shifting behind the shock, a crack spreading through bedrock that had stood immovable for 4 decades. The sharp intake of breath came from 12 throats at once. Zhang Wei remained on one knee, concrete cold beneath him, his blackened palms pressed flat against the floor. He looked up. Shock carved lines deeper into his weathered face, but something else moved behind his eyes, recognition dawning where defeat should have settled. Bruce saw it. The moment a warrior stops fighting the truth and starts hearing it. Bruce bent forward, spine folding until his torso reached parallel with the ground, a bow so deep it erased hierarchy. "Master Zhang," Bruce said, voice steady but softer than before, "your iron palm is real." Impressive, he held the position, vulnerable, but power, it must pair with target selection. Few could understand what Zhang felt in that moment, 40 years of invincibility rewritten in seconds, yet no mockery in the words. Only acknowledgement, your conditioning protected everywhere, Bruce continued, rising slowly, except the vulnerable points. The incense smoke thickened between them, carrying sandalwood and something heavier. Zhang's breath steadied. His hands trembled once, then stilled. He absorbed the words like strikes, each one landing, each one changing the landscape of what he thought he knew. Truth, delivered without cruelty, cuts deeper than any fist. But what Zhang would do with that truth, no one in the basement could predict. Zhang Wei's knees straightened, joints audible in the basement's silence. He rose inch by inch, 40 years of iron conditioning suddenly feeling like burden instead of armor, his blackened hands pressed together. He bowed low, deliberate, matching the depth Bruce had offered moments before. The movement stirred incense smoke between them, sandalwood mingling with the sharp scent of concrete dust. "You honored me," Zhang said, his gaze steady on Bruce's face. "You could have struck there immediately, but you didn't." Bruce straightened from his own bow. "I needed to show respect for your training first, Master Zhang." "Your iron palm is real," Zhang's jaw tightened. His next breath came rough, catching in his throat. "I was wrong," the words fractured. His voice, so steady moments ago when he'd broken boards, cracked like splitting oak. "Old methods work. But incomplete methods don't." The 12 masters leaned forward as one, robes rustling. Zhang's calloused palms opened, vulnerable. "Teach me." Silence stretched, then Elder Fang stood, his chair scraping stone. The sound echoed like a gavel. His aged face twisted into something between fury and disbelief, and when he spoke, his Cantonese sliced through the air with ceremonial weight. Spring arrived 6 months later. In Zhang Wei's training hall, Bruce's knuckles thudded against canvas bags packed with iron filings. The sharp metallic scent of dit de jiao liniment clung to his reddening hands. Zhang watched his breathing pattern. Shallow strikes meant nothing. Power came from the root, traveling through legs into fists. At the Oakland Jun Fan Gung Fu Institute, Zhang stood before anatomical charts Bruce had mounted on bamboo frames. His calloused finger traced nerve pathways along drawn ribs, memorizing intersections where pressure collapsed structure regardless of conditioning. The diagrams smelled faintly of ink and rice paper. They trained through winter rain and March winds. Bruce's palms darkened gradually, though never to Zhang's iron black. Zhang's strikes became surgical, targeting gaps in armor rather than battering walls. One humid afternoon, Zhang returned to his own students. A young fighter asked what had happened that November night in the basement. Zhang's voice carried no shame. "I challenged Bruce Lee to defend tradition. He defended it. By showing me how to complete it." The two men never sparred again. They didn't need to. What Zhang had built in 40 years, Bruce refined in precision. What Bruce discovered through analysis, Zhang tempered with ancestral fire. Evolution didn't erase the past, it carried it forward.